Hey fellas, welcome to Guys and Grief, sponsored by Emma's Footprints and First Candle. We started this podcast for fathers like us that have experienced pregnancy or infant loss. You see, when we went through these life-changing experiences, we struggled to find resources that were specifically for men in support of navigating this grieving process. We're not doctors. We're not psychiatrists. We're three friends. We're grieving fathers that have been through the unthinkable and want to help others by talking about the unique and often undiscussed perspective of men that have experienced child loss. We welcome you to join us on this journey. Share your stories, the challenges, laugh with us, maybe shed a tear or two, and help each other as we navigate honoring our children, grief, supporting our family, and trying to find better days ahead. Let's get into it. Well, hey, fellas, I'm Brad.
Hi, Brian.
Nice, and welcome to another episode of Guys and Grief. Boys, it's been 4 days since I've seen you, and I'm missing you guys. How we doing?
I'm missing you guys. We had a great weekend. It's hard to. I think I'm still recovering a little bit.
Sounds about right.
Not gonna lie to you, I went to bed yesterday around 8:30.
Brandon, where were we?
We were at Magical Winter Gala. And
Woo! Shout out Emma's Footprints.
it was awesome. What an experience, I tell you. Oh, we met so many cool people that just not to toot our own horns, but giving us good props. And real talk, it was experience alone was awesome just to hear other fathers, give their side of the stories and kind of like thank us for what we're doing. It was cool.
Yeah, amazing to meet some of our other guests too, right? Brian Daly, Scott Stoops that are a part of Emma's and getting to meet them in person. That was amazing, huh?
Yeah, and shout out to Tracy and Brian Daly, putting this event together. It was incredible. I mean, the turnout was stellar.
340
really
people.
done.
340 people. That's insane. Yeah.
That's crazy. And I want to point this out for our listeners. Brad and his wife, Jessica, were courageous enough to get on stage. They were sort of the main speaker of the event. And they got on stage. They told their story. It was incredibly brave and emotional. And I'm sure that story raised a lot of money. So props to you, Brad and Jess. You guys crushed it. And,
thank you.
It takes a lot to speak in front of 340 people, let alone tell one of the saddest, stories in your lives.
Yeah,
so,
I appreciate that. It was, thank you. We followed two incredibly sad videos that were recorded doing a similar thing, telling their story. And then we're on stage, spotlights on, the whole room is dark. And we just jumped right in. And, I've clearly gotten comfortable in this space talking about our children and grief. My wife, Jessica, not as much yet. And so I was so unbelievably proud of the work that she did getting in front of 340 people and bravely sharing our story and, talking about Beckham and Ari. And then I definitely plugged the pod, not so much from a gaining listeners perspective, but from an unbelievable level of support that we got from Emma's, because truly, as we all know, as one of our main sponsors, along with First Candle, we would not be here if it wasn't for them and the generosity of these incredible nonprofits that we get to work with or that have sponsored our families in our darkest hour. And, they've said yes to us, and it was an awesome opportunity to say yes back and get that moment to speak in front of that many people. But
yeah. And thanks to all the guys that did come up to us, like Brandon said. I mean, it's awesome hearing stories. I think
the Building Stronger Roots guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out.
Yeah, and we're referencing it's like a local group that they get together and, they talk about their loss. And again, what they're doing is incredibly courageous. And we appreciate everybody that came up and told their stories, because everybody has their own personal story and it's not easy to talk about it. So, thank you.
Yeah. An amazing event. And speaking of an amazing group of guys, no G&G Q&A today, because we are going to jump right in with a group of three gentlemen that are an amazing group from the Sad Dads Club. We'd like to welcome Rob, Jay, and Chris into the studio. Fellas, come on in.
Woo!
Yeah.
Give him a little round of applause.
What's going on, boys? How we doing?
So thanks for having us.
Well,
Ah.
it's great to have you guys
Thank you all.
and finally meet you in person or virtually.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know the Sad Dads Club, you absolutely need to check them out on Instagram. We've already formed a really cool bond with these guys that many of us are just meeting for the first time here today, but, you know, supporting each other through social media. Some of us actually know similar people just through dumb luck of the world. And we'll hear a lot about what you guys have done for your community. Before we get into that, and we're going to do just a really sort of off the cuff conversation. We'll jump into a bunch of topics. But as we always do, we want to get to know a little bit about the people on the pod. So my always stupid thing: who is he, Dad, and what does he do? Do you guys know the movie Kindergarten Cop? Come on, Rob. Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
I can't wait to be able to watch that with our living kids.
And the next time you do, you're gonna be like that idiot host guy.
That's what he does.
Not the
I've seen it, but I didn't want to admit it on that first podcast when he did it because
You're gonna smile. You're gonna smile when you watch it again.
It's a good flick.
So let's go ahead and Rob, why don't you just introduce yourself? Where you guys live, what you do personally, and we also, since there's not a lot of time for us to go deep into each of your respective stories, give us sort of the high level, if you will, about your lost story.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Brad, Brian, and Brandon, for having us on. We're big fans. Everyone we talk to is a big fan and think that what you're doing is absolutely incredible. The more people are talking about this stuff, the more people it's going to help. So thank you all for even thinking of us and just for doing what you're doing regularly.
Thank you.
My name's Rob. I live in Falmouth, Maine currently, and my daughter Lila was delivered stillborn at 38 weeks on December 13th, 2017.
Wow. So sorry, man.
Yeah.
Rob, what do you do professionally? What keeps you busy up there in Maine?
My day job is that I am the philanthropy manager at the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital, which is not that long-winded way of saying, but I work in development, so I do fundraising for the Children's Hospital here in Maine. It is the only full-service children's hospital, a very easy cause to emotionally invest in, and that's where both of my children were born, in that hospital. So there was a little bit of trepidation when I heard of the opening from a friend. It was like, I don't know if I can be there. It might be a little too triggering, but it really has turned into a bright space for me that I really do enjoy being in and feel a unique connection to, that I think helps drive my desire to work hard and raising that money for the kids who need it most.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah, great job.
I got to briefly meet Rob when I joined the Sad Dads Club a couple weeks ago to open hours. And Rob, I could tell you had a big heart then, and I didn't even know what you did professionally. And just hearing what you do too, that's pretty unbelievable, man. You're a pretty special guy.
Thank you very much.
Jay, how about yourself?
Thanks, Brad and Brian and Brandon. I'm Jay Tanzi. I'm Bella's dad. My wife Ellie and I, we lost our second daughter, our second child, Bella, on January 31st, 2017. She was stillborn at 40 weeks. I also live in Maine, the other side of Portland from where Rob and Chris are, in Cape Elizabeth. And I work in the animal health industry.
Wow. Are you a vet? What is animal health?
No one wants me in your actual vet. I work in
Sell drugs.
I work in software.
Excellent.
He mules through animals across the cartel lines.
Yeah, you were being a little sly with what you did. Yeah.
You got cats and dogs feeding for what you
I'm
got.
trying to be concise. I'm the least concise person ever. So I'm just trying to be quick to the point.
Appreciate it, man. Pleasure to have you.
I work at a technology company. We do diagnostics. So, if you take your dog or cat to the vet, likely you're running the vet's running the labs on IDEX equipment, sending it out to our reference lab network across the country and around the world. I work in the software team, and so we do the electronic medical records and really the operating system of the practices, helping veterinarians be more efficient and practice better medicine. But no, I don't
Very
get
cool.
anywhere near the animals. That's
That's
left to the
awesome.
professional.
And you also live in Maine too?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great.
Amazing. And certainly last but not least, Chris, how about yourself?
Brad, Brian, and Brandon, thank you guys so much for what you guys are doing, for having us on. I've been fans of you guys since episode 1. Brad, you joined us a few weeks ago. And as I said in the email when we set this up, if the fanfare is anything, Brandon and Brian, I'm sure they'd love to meet you guys if you guys were ever around.
Can't wait to join.
Yeah, anytime. So I also live in Maine. I live in Falmouth for the moment. We're building a house. That'll be ready shortly here. But we are.
By hand. He's doing it by hand. He's just like brick by brick.
Yeah, brick by brick. I'm Isabel's father, and Isabel was stillborn at 37 weeks on July 21st, 2018, 2 days before my birthday. So, yeah.
Wow.
And for work, I work at a bank in there. I'm an attorney licensed in Maine and Massachusetts. I work at a bank up here overseeing their trust and estates administration, wealth management, investment strategy. So not quite the heart that Rob has.
It's all right. Important work.
That's right.
Exactly.
And where did you grow up, Chris? Because we
we
have some mutual friends.
I figure. So I grew up in Darien and Norwalk, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And Brian has become very good friends with many people that I went to high school with and have many stories. And I sit here half excited and half terrified about what he actually does and doesn't know.
Well, the feeling's mutual because it goes both ways. If you ask him about me, I'm sure they would have just as many funny stories. But it was I was going to say it's a pleasure that we had mutual friends when I found you guys and saw we were connected so many different ways. It's always nice to just know that you have common friends, and it's awesome to meet you finally.
Yeah, and I think you reached out to Laura Young originally, and I don't know how much she has with this podcast or not, but she's got a pretty big following in the infertility world too.
Yeah.
So, or maybe it was you, Brad, who did that.
When I was living in Norwalk as well, and I know Laura through being friends with Brian, and she put me in touch with you guys a long time ago. So, small worlds. Speaking of which, how do you guys?
Her husband has been one of my best friends since we were like 7.
Amazing.
So,
oh, really?
Yeah, we were both tennis players growing up.
Incredible.
Oh, yeah, I got to catch up with Laura. She's great.
Now, how do you guys all know each other?
So Rob and I are best friends from college. We went to a small liberal arts school here in Maine, Bowdoin College. Go you Bears. You may see a needlepoint pillow on the chair behind me that my grandmother knit upon my graduation. Very proud alums. We lived next door to each other freshman year and lived together throughout college after. And then after college, I moved in to his parents' attic in Maryland. He was off touring the world as in a boy band, and I was not. And
he's been on TRL. He's been on TRL twice.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Wait. You're throwing out jewels. We're definitely. Hold on, let me write that down. Nope. We're coming back to that, buddy.
Daily TRL that we're talking about?
No. This was after the post Carson Daly days. It was towards the end before they discontinued it. I'd like to think our performance was just so magnificent that no act could possibly follow us.
Or they were just like, we just hit the bottom of the barrel. We got to go, right?
I'm trying to think more optimistically.
I'm messing with you, bud.
But this was like 2008.
Amazing.
Question. Was there frosted tips?
No, so calling it a boy band is a little misleading. It was a rock band that played like pop.
Fair enough.
Rock music. No frosted tips.
They did straight.
I mean, if you look at Rob today, I would not have guessed a boy band.
So maybe we can hire you to do the intro to the pod. I hate that kind of like melodramatic.
So Rob was in another band previously, and I had a TV show in college, and that band's one of their songs was our theme song, was our intro music. So.
There we go.
There you go.
You're in.
You're hired, man. Let's go.
You're in.
And then where does Chris come into the fold of the friendship here?
So, this is a terrible club.
Wow.
Really brought back a
Mark.
No way.
For the listeners.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
If you search the
For our
front,
listeners,
Oh,
Chris
yeah.
can show the picture for sure.
Yeah, that's getting
many,
posted on social.
many embarrassing photos of me in that era.
Don't be embarrassed. Trust me, we got some worse ones out here. Trust me.
So where does Chris fall into the friendship? How do you get pulled in here? Buddy?
So Chris's wife, Sarah, went to Bowdoin as well, and we didn't know each other in college, but through this terrible club that we're all members of, not the Sad Dads Club specifically, but just, being lost parents, we were connected through a mutual friend, and very quickly hit it off with Chris, and the Sad Dads Club was officially born at a bar in Portland, Maine, in the old port, over beers and tears, as we like to say. And so it was a fast friendship through the most unlikely and terrible and traumatic circumstances that any group of people can go through. But it's obviously been amazing to get to know him.
So take us there. So you guys just all happen to go sit at a bar, and a couple beers go by, and you come up with this idea. Yeah, take us through it.
A little different, because I know I've heard some episodes you guys talked about how you guys did randomly meet at a bar.
Brian and I, yeah.
Yeah.
You picked me up.
No, you picked me up. I was
Debatable.
fully fine there alone, but okay.
All right, guys. All right, guys.
So basically what happened was, so the beers and tears were the result of, so my wife knows Jay and Rob and her sister. Basically, I'm the only member of this family who didn't attend Bowdoin. So the Bowdoin community is very small, and my brother-in-law reached out to Jay. Jay reached out to me and then connected me with Rob. And then, I don't know, probably a month or so later, we all agreed to meet at this bar in downtown Portland. And Sad Dads wasn't on the agenda. There was nothing like this on our mind. It was just meeting like-minded people, or not like-minded,
experienced
people. And
Similarly traumatized.
yeah. And you had three guys sitting in the middle of a crowded bar, for the most part, like openly crying. And it was surreal to be honest. And I'm sure everyone else thought it was surreal too, just staring at that. But it just felt so, natural to talk to these guys. Like, you didn't have to explain why you were feeling this. You didn't have to explain why you were upset. And that was the start of our friendship. And then I certainly let someone else jump into how we got to the next stage.
There was an instance where we were supposed to have hung out. I think actually the first time the three of us were going to get together at Jay's house, and it was really crappy weather, and other circumstances led to us postponing our first hangout, like the three of us all together. And that evening, again, it was cold, rainy, dark. I reminded my wife that it's like, yeah, we're going to meet up. It's the three of us. We're going to meet this guy, Chris. He and his wife lost their daughter recently, and she was like, gosh, it's like such crappy weather. It's all dark and cold. You are going to be sitting around. It's like the Sad Dads Club. And that just sort of like stuck. So it was my wife who had originally come up with the name just in a passing moment of articulating what she felt like we were going to look like amidst this dark, cold, rainy night being.
I love the hashtag you guys have too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. That works.
And was this pre-COVID or post-COVID? When
this was pre-COVID. Pre-COVID. And once she said that name, it sort of stuck in my head. And the more that the three of us hung out and spoke to one another, or that sounds so formal, the more we hung out and just shot the shit. And we're often going back to things that we were struggling with, or that we were triggered by, or that we were even finding like some weird silver lining in. It just became this outlet, I think, for one another. And I know I found it like super helpful, because we would often say, I don't want to bring this up to my wife, my partner, because if they're having a good day, I don't want to bring them down. And my experience is a little different than theirs. And it just, I don't know, there was a more commonality and a unique space that we all found with being able to talk to and connect with one another about this thing that was just so life altering and tragic.
I mean, I think we ended up meeting other lost dads in the most random, mundane circumstances. So it was like, at our oldest, my wife Ellie and I are fortunate to have 3 living kids at home. Saying the term living kids was like very weird the first time I heard it.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you like living? And now I just use it very freely. But we have 3 living kids: an 8-year-old son Jack, a almost 5-year-old daughter Pepper, who's our rainbow baby, and then after the rain and the rainbow comes the sun. And so our youngest, our older 2 kids named Sunny. So our youngest daughter,
Beautiful.
Sunny, is 2.5, and so we were at T-ball for Jack, and Jack's T-ball coach was talking about how their second child was born and how it was really touch and go, and you just tell that there was something like that he was holding back from saying about like why they were so excited about the birth of their second child. He was just kind of like, you just never know, and I was like, do I do this? Like, we're literally in the middle of a field on like a Wednesday afternoon. There's lots of people around. And I was like, you know what the fuck? I'm just going to go for it. And I was like, dude, I get it. We lost our second child. She was stillborn. And he had this look on his face that I've seen hundreds of times before from other people who were like, how the hell am I supposed to respond to this? Like, that's heavy. That's a lot of information to take in. And I'm on a new team at work, and we did this thing where it was like one personal, professional, and team thing that you talk about at the beginning of the meeting. And I dropped Sad Dads Club and how we just filed for our 501c3 status today, and everyone was like, "What?" Anyway, so,
awesome.
So I said this to Mario, and he was like, it was the first time he'd literally talked to anyone other than his wife about losing their child, and then I was at the beach in our neighborhood, and there was a guy I was shooting the shit with, and similar situation, and he literally hadn't talked to anybody, since losing their son Logan, and it was just amazing, to me personally, and to Chris and Rob. Like, we just kept having these experiences, and so this club informally kept growing, and Ellie and I ended up being interviewed for an article in the New York Times, not the way I thought that I was going to show up in the New York Times. I guess there could be worse circumstances, but
better than the drug smuggling through the animals.
That whole animal health thing that I'm doing. And I mentioned how, Rob coined this term Sad Dads Club, and then we just kind of, Rob really encouraged me and Chris to kind of, let's formalize this. Let's run with this.
So it's interesting that once that idea kind of took off and you're talking about formalizing it, you guys do this amazing open hours where you invite other lost dads. Where did that idea come from? Was that a reiteration of something else? Like, did you just think maybe we'll do social media, try to talk to dads that way? Or was it like we want to do sort of a group where we can talk to lost dads?
We always wanted it to be this communal thing that was like about everybody who was willing to show up, open up, and share. And the original idea was to have a website, and we would offer our 3 respective birth stories for the daughters that we lost, and then encourage other people to contribute, which is still very much a thing and what we want to continue having. Lost dads or lost parents, if they feel non-dads, can also contribute. But the website was where it started. And then there was a nonprofit that once we launched the Instagram March 1st of last year, we started connecting with different people, and someone had sent us a message saying, we're hosting this open hour for dads, like, you should stop in. And it was something, we were trying to think of a way to build a community and to make a space where people could just come and be. And, it started with the website, but we were always kind of looking for the next thing. And this nonprofit SAILS, which is an acronym for Stillborn and Infant Loss Support, that was who had reached out. And I showed up late, I remember too, because I was I was sort of on the fence about going. I didn't know if I felt up for it or to it. And I went on, and it was more formal. There were 3 hosts who were sharing their respective stories. And then there was a Q&A at the end. And this one guy who was right at the 4-year mark, which is where I was at the time I tuned into this. And you would have thought it happened to him yesterday, because he's like, I had to quit my job because I worked in the hospital where we lost our child. Like, I can't bring this up to my wife because it upsets her more. I have nowhere that I can talk about. He's in his car just absolutely breaking down. And he spent a majority of the end of the meeting talking, and it just clicked, was like, we have to create something like this regularly. All the last questions were around, when's the next one of these? When's the next one? They're like, I don't know. This was a one-off that we were doing. So we got in touch with sales and said, hey, there's clearly a need for this. And this is something we've kind of been like inching towards, but what if we partnered on it? We can commit to hosting it and being there. Like we'll take it on and make sure that somebody is there to let people in, even if one person or nobody shows up. But that has really become, I'd say, the defining, like the definition of the community, because, pardon me, with the internet and with Zoom, there's limitless reach, and guys are showing up and they say that they're looking forward to it. And it went from once a month to twice a month. And there really has been a bond that's been formed. We opened a Discord channel because people wanted to talk offline, and that's been really helpful for folks. And it's exactly what it's getting even closer to what we wanted to do when we were talking about, like, what is the vision for this? The community element. I'll pass it on to Chris now, because I've just done a lot of jabber jawing.
No, I was going to say, I think there's it's actually really interesting to see how the open hour has evolved, and it's going to continue to evolve. So what started is, maybe 6 or 7 people week one. We've now reached. We were getting to a point where we started offering it twice a month because the need was there. People wanted to attend, and the numbers are good, and they continue to be good. But what's really powerful is that, at least in my opinion, the way that we always looked at Sad Dads Club is the community first, right? So unfortunately, as we all are acutely aware of, not to use a cheesy sales term to talk about a subject like this, but the top end of the funnel, people who lose their children, is going to constantly keep getting filled. It's going to keep happening. Hopefully groups like this can bring more awareness and drop those numbers. That's the overall goal. But in some way, shape, or form, someone's always going to be in need of being able to talk to somebody, to reach out. And so what we found in these open hours is, even watching people from the first time they attend to now, which is 3 months, 4 months later. I'll use an example, a super, super powerful example of something happened. Brad, we talked about it when you came, but it was the meeting.
I was hoping you were going to speak on this one, actually.
It was incredibly powerful. So somebody who had lost their child the night before showed up with their wife. And it wasn't planned. But watching a room of guys tell them about the pitfalls and what to expect and what questions they're going to be asked at the funeral home, and, all the horrors that we all walked into, and might, maybe some of us knew more than others. I know I didn't know anything. Isabella had been gone. We had known she'd been gone for a matter of hours when I got asked if I had thought about, cremation or burial. And I was like, I was fucking thinking about a nursing.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't thinking about any of that. But watching these guys come together and rally around this individual they'd never met was absurdly powerful, and also really challenging. And I wanted to bring that up the next time we met too, because, that forum is for everyone to get to speak. And unfortunately that didn't happen in that session because everyone rallied around this one individual who clearly needed it. And I don't know, it's such a weird comment, but I was so proud. Like, Rob, Jay, and I are 4 or 5 years removed. And a lot of these guys have said, I come to these meetings because I want to see a future version of myself. Mm-hmm. And that quote has always stuck with me. And all that means is, I want to know there's a light at the end of this tunnel. I want to know I'm going to be able to live again. And that has made all of this worth it for me, watching even one individual feel that. And Jay, I don't know, I'll let you jump in here, but Brad, I was glad you saw that conversation when you came.
It was unbelievably powerful.
Really powerful, yeah. I'm like,
yeah.
God, a day after a loss. I don't even remember that day. Like, I don't even remember the month after a loss,
I wouldn't have known how to turn on my computer, let alone to get on.
Yeah. It was surreal. And for all the reasons you said. I couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't have done it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wouldn't have done it.
Yep.
Not just to be the number one thing, like, you know what, not number one, but per se, just like, we need help. We need to, listen or speak to someone, to take that initiative. Power to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And power to everybody on that open hours, because
Yeah.
I mean, we've learned it a lot through the podcast, but there's one thing that guys are really good at, and it's rallying around people they love, their boys, their spouses, and like everything. I feel like we're loyal in nature and wanna help and be there for people. So it's even more powerful to see, like, this open hours is not for me to grieve. Like, I see this person's in pain, and we see that a lot on the podcast and people reaching out. So it's awesome that you guys are seeing it live. So that's incredible.
It's great to see live, and I think one of the interesting similarities between Guys and Grief and Sad Dads is, at the nucleus, you have 3 individuals who had this very strong friendship before anything launched. And it's not that, and I think we did a lot of research on different things that were out there prior, and it looked like the most difficult thing that groups like this face was consistency and continuity. And I think having this core friendship, like, all we're doing at Sad Dads is connecting other people, because all the topics we talk about, just like you guys, returning to work, triggers, we're just talking about things we called each other for. We just didn't do it online.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
Google here.
Yeah.
So what are you guys hearing the most? Jake, I want you to finish there too, but what are you guys hearing a lot in these open hour conversations?
What's been really powerful, Brad, is that, and what we've been completely blown away by is just the reach that we've had because of, the power of Zoom and social media, is that we literally are bringing in people from around the world. And it's people from every background, profession. We have people who are, we had someone who, what's awesome about the Discord chat is that, like, people will share their deepest, darkest days, but also their successes and their triumphs. So people who just finished their dissertations and, got their PhD are celebrating that with all of us. There's people from just every race and creed, and, and you have all these people who may not ever have interacted in real life, coming together and supporting each other. And, they're sharing their most intimate stories with people who were complete strangers, the month prior. And you just form these really fast bonds, and we're excited to expand it into, from the virtual space that we're doing it, over Zoom, into hosting, retreats, and, we're gearing up for an event this summer and trying to, test the waters there. So that we can just see, like, how this works, because we're making this up as we go along. None of us are,
Same.
in the professional space. Like, everything that we're sharing is, our personal experiences. We're not professional psychologists, but we all, one of the things that the 3 of us believe so deeply in is the power of quality grief counseling services. And so I mentioned this in passing earlier, but the reason that we filed for a 501c3 status is because we're all deeply committed and passionate about the idea of fundraising so that we can help families who are struggling in the immediate aftermath of stillbirth and infant loss access quality grief counseling services. I'm incredibly fortunate to have really strong network of friends and family who, but still, when you're going 3-4 times a week to grief counseling and your spouse is going separately, and you're going separately for individual sessions and joint sessions, it adds up when, insurance doesn't cover it.
True.
And so, we want to be able to at least lift the burden a little bit for some, families who can't afford quality grief counseling services. Because I feel, deeply that I don't know if I'd be here today if it weren't for the therapist that we saw. So I don't know if I answered your question, Brad, but
No. What I was so amazed by in joining too is, as Chris mentioned, I joined the episode of, or the open hour exactly after the gentleman came, the lost their child the day prior, and just seeing the very eclectic group that you all had, both from where people are located. There was a gentleman that's on there that's like 25 years removed or something. That was
Rudy.
like
Yeah.
Rudy. Yeah, he
42.
was like the heart and soul of what you guys do. He
What a
was
great name for
right.
somebody that's yeah.
He was
It is-
incredible.
We can't go through this episode. I mean, we love all the guys who show, but I mean, Rudy is 42 years removed at this
42.
point. Still talks about Aisha every day. He recently had lunch with a guy named Will, who's become a very important member of Sad Dads. Helps us with
Big
a lot
beard.
of our marketing. Yep.
Yeah.
And then Mike, who I could go through all these guys, but it's just I just feel like I know them, and it's Matt, Spencer, everybody. It's just like you get these guys that show up twice a month routinely and look forward to it, and it's really incredible to watch.
I mean, even before we started, as I logged on, you guys were asking somebody about their job interview that they had the day before, and it was just clear and obvious that this isn't like a show up once and all right, that was cathartic and I'll never come back again, but that you've actually created something that's got stickiness. What are you guys hearing the most from men? As we think about the impact that we're making through G&G and that you're making in these conversations with Sad Dads. What do they need? What are they struggling with the most? What's reoccurring themes? I know you're obviously bringing topics to the table, but what are you guys hearing, sort of boots on the ground, really having these conversations with men where we might have one guest on or we may not, right? We have plenty of episodes where we don't. So curious what you guys are hearing.
They need all of this, talking about it, hearing other people talk about it, the acknowledgement, the welcoming of an audience that eliminates alienation for them. Like that is, I think, really what keeps them buoyant and what keeps them moving along their grief journey and healing in the process, because they know they're not alone. They know that there are people out there who are going through the terrible, awful days and then the good days and then the days that dip back down again. And knowing that you have people who understand you, I think has been what I have heard to be from a lot of the dudes who show up as a bright light. And a lot of them, again, as Chris had mentioned, are within their first year or have just passed the 1 year mark since their loss. So for the most part, they're relatively new. And this has been what I've experienced and what I feel like I hear the most of is that, Guys in Grief, having a podcast where guys are talking about it, addressing actual issues that they can relate to, having people that they can talk to on a Discord channel or a Zoom place where they can see other people, a place where they can cry, a place where they can laugh, a place where they can experience the spectrum of emotions and know that they're not losing their minds, they're not going crazy, and that it is perfectly fine, okay, and all right to feel terrible in the aftermath, months, years, decades removed from losing your child.
That makes sense. I love the fact that you guys, you're not just saying a person. You guys they have names. They're tangible. And I think the same thing that you guys are seeing, we're seeing too with just the side messages from different listeners, contacting us saying, "Hey, I'm in this particular location. I'm in Buffalo. So hey, are you part of Guys and Grief? Yeah, I'm part of it. I was wondering if I could sit and have coffee with you. I just need to talk to someone." And
You're having lunch with somebody this week, right?
Yeah, Dusty, my man Dusty here. So, but it's one of those things where he reached out to me and I'm like, sure, no problem. I have absolutely zero issue or zero problem having this conversation because he's like, I need to talk to someone. I've been on this island so long by myself. He just lost his 2 children and he's struggling and I'm here to support. We are here to support. So I love the fact that you guys, are building an extended family, I guess I can call it, with, your extended brothers. I don't want to say listeners. I don't want to say callers.
Yeah.
But your extended brothers,
Well,
I think it was
the worst club, best guys.
Yeah, that's
it's-
what I mentioned the hashtag earlier.
No one wants to join it. You don't get a choice. You don't, there's no application. You're just in it. if you
I
unfortunately
wouldn't fill out that application if somebody
Nope.
handed it to me.
it'd be a pretty bad application.
Tear that shit up.
application.
I don't know. Jay, Rob, how long did we workshop that one for? I wish I could say that just flowed off our tongue, but we played with a couple of different ones on that one.
Yeah, that was not an overnight. That was deliberated, massaged, worked. But what do you guys hear?
The first three words we had down: worst club,
Yeah.
best. It was where do we go with this?
Yeah.
Best
Well,
bros felt a little too broy, fratty for us. And one of the things that came out really organically during one of the Lost Dad open hours was Rob started introducing everyone by their their child's father. So he'd say, "This is Jay, Bella's dad," and that's really become core to who we are as a community. It's what I think is really profound about it is that for so many of us, we don't get to speak the name of our deceased child as much as we feel them in our hearts all the time. Like I talk about our living kids all the time, but so people will be like, "Oh, that's Jack's dad." No one refers to me outside of Sad Dads Club as Bella's dad. And so it's really special to hear it and to hear your child's name and to hear it, especially out of, the mouths of people who know exactly what you're going through. And so that's just been this like little piece that, Rob just brought up very naturally, and it's really just come to define, I think, important part of what Sad Dads Club is.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
That's so powerful. It was awesome. Anybody who's watching the video, as soon as you said that, I think all six of us were like, yes, because it is so powerful and important to say your lost child's name. And it's, when we talk to a lot of our guests, it always kind of starts off a little tough and shy because, again, it's a very personal thing that's happened in your life. But it's interesting for us as they start to get it off their chest, it becomes more, they start talking more and more about it. And I think it's a little bit of a snowball effect where it's very powerful to talk your story because you really don't get to other than, kind of one-off conversations where people don't really understand. And we've talked about on our podcast, people don't know what to say a lot of the times, which can get frustrating. And a lot of times you sometimes just want to avoid that, but it is, we're in a very strong community that nobody wants to be a part of, but it's a very supportive community. And it does allow us to tell our stories. That's kind of what we see on our podcast that, is prominent,
Yeah, there's no
to add on to that. I'm sorry. To add on to that, B, when they're telling their story, and you watch, the guys, their heads are down a little bit, kind of speaking. I'm a visual learner, so I'm watching everything. Their heads are down, and like as they're talking more about their children, their heads come up, their shoulders sit back, their shoulders drop. They have a little more confidence in them. You can't write a better story for that. Like their confidence is building as they're speaking about their children. It's amazing.
It's beautiful.
So what's next for Sad Dads Club? I know you talked about filing for the 501 and maybe doing some live retreats, which is amazing. Is that the next step? I mean, where do you guys see it going from here? Because it's pretty awesome what you guys are doing.
Well, we were going to do a podcast, but then these three guys started doing.
Were you really?
The asshole took your ideas.
We had kicked it around, but we were just like, I don't think we're organized enough for this.
Well, you didn't have Brad Kogut. Yeah.
Right.
We don't have the fancy microphones.
Very glad.
We also didn't have
Thank you, Emma's Footprints, for the mics. Yep. Thank you.
You're darn right.
That's one of the things we talked about. I was like, we don't even know what mics to buy.
Yeah. I listened to the How to Start a podcast, and that's how I figured out most of the shit. That actually exists. Thank you. Shout out to them, too.
Brad sent us like 4 mics that we had to pick out and gave us a full like pros and cons of each mic. Headphones. Yeah.
Well, I see, Brian, you just decided to go old school and no microphone. Just
exactly. I work in radio, but I am no help at all. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I no BS. I work at a school. I'm a dean of students. These guys message all all day, and they're working too. They're busting their butt, but like, I have to attend to 400 kids, and I'm like, I am so sorry, guys. I love you guys. I am just. I'll message you guys after 4 o'clock.
Yeah, but if we text about Josh Allen in the middle of the day, somehow he miraculously responds. So, anyways, what
did you text about the two defensive individuals Buffalo's about to lose?
We definitely did message that today.
Yeah, we're gonna edit this part out.
I don't want to talk about it. Poor Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets.
So, what is next for Sad Dads Club? So, the talk about the retreat and where we go from here, you guys.
Yeah, we're trying to get a big cabin in Maine, a little north from where we are, hopefully somewhere on the water, and get the dads together in person. There's a serious desire for that stuff, and I think
we're in. By the way,
in person would be awesome.
My man, there you have to do it. We're in.
Maine's not that far from where you are, so once we've actually got that spot secured, we'll throw out the weekend, and please join us because
that's amazing.
I don't mind camping at all.
As Jay was alluding to earlier, the grand picture is something we've really been focused on since day one. We've had a great first year. Like you guys, this is pretty much all grassroots, all organic. I think it works because of the genuineness. You listen to, one of the things that we always hear, and we don't intend this, and I doubt you guys do either. The ability to talk about such unbelievably challenging topics and then somehow be smiling 30 seconds later is not easy. And, some of that's time and some of that's personality. But from Sad Dads, the community has always been the number one focus. And then the grand scheme is, as Jay alluded to and said, we really want to find ways to help people who are not as fortunate to be able to afford the services that helped us get through it all. Be that through events like your standard charity. We've got, Jay's on the board of nonprofits, Rob's in fundraising. I'm an attorney. We have a decent skill set to at least look like we know what we're doing on paper. But what we've really realized is there's such an eagerness from the people who show up to these loss hours to help. Yeah. We've had people drive through the state of Maine, meet us on a playground, and offer to fill out Excel spreadsheets. Like, the desire to help grow this is not because they love us. It's because it's so important to them. It's like you guys, it's a part of you. It changes you. Going back to one of the questions you asked earlier, Brad, what do we hear a lot? A lot of the stuff you guys have hit on in very good episodes, things like going back to work, like things like how do you grieve when your partner grieves differently than you, like things that we all struggle with and talk about. We hear it all the time, and we're not professionals, and we're smart enough to know that these things are so unbelievably different for individuals that we know what worked for us and didn't work for us, and we try and share that like you guys do. But at the end of the day, we'd like to be a part of getting some actual help from people who have nice degrees on the wall and are significantly smarter than ourselves, for people who might not have access.
Yeah. Did all three of you guys go through therapy? Because, you guys all experienced losses kind of around the same time I did in 2018. Mine was late. He was born late 18. Austin passed away early 19. Did you go therapy? Because I talked about in the last episode, it didn't really work for me, but I think it was because of the therapist. I'd be curious to know how you guys handled it a little bit and kind of what you would use the money that you raise in your nonprofit, to help other families.
That's a really good point, Brian, that it can take a while to find someone that you've got a connection with that's helpful. So the first therapist that Ellie and I went to, she was wonderful, don't get me wrong, but she just didn't, there was candles being lit, and it was it was a little too touchy-feely for our where then we got connected with a second therapist, Elise Corbett, who was amazing. And the reason it resonated so much with us, one of the reasons, was because, one, she had, I won't get into the personal backstory, I'll leave that to her to share, but I think it was more. She talked about like from like an academic standpoint. Not that we're like highbrow people, but just like be able to like understand what the hell was going on in our brains and like why we were feeling this way, and like what like the kind of like these like deep animalistic feelings that we had just in terms of like protecting ourselves, and like why like these were feelings that we hadn't felt before, and like sometimes they're really uncomfortable in terms of like the anger, this like deep rage that you have inside of you.
That's our G&G Q&A and the episode that comes out next week, by the way. So before this one airs, yeah, exactly right. We talk about anger.
And like you guys are all really amazing, wonderful guys from what I could tell. And like that rage probably isn't there, like, or hadn't been, released previously. And so it's really important to try and take a couple tries to find, because it was incredibly powerful. And again, we're not professionals, so we can't say that enough. And so, like, I don't think that, Sad Dads Club and the Lost Dads open hours are a substitute for, quality professional grief counseling services. I think it's like a supplemental thing. But to each their own. Like, we all feel, I'll speak for myself, but I know that Rob and Chris have said so, and they can articulate it better than I can. Like, it really helped. And so, we at least, try to encourage folks to take a look and see if it
good points.
It's a good fit for you.
Yeah. So I'm going to, one of our favorite episodes that we did, favorite's a weird word, but one of the ones that's actually gotten the most listens as well is the episode that we did that I'm not sure if you guys checked it out, but we entitled it Nobody Prepares You For. And we talked on 9 different topics that nobody prepared us for. Signing a death certificate, joining this community, people saying stupid shit to you. So want to throw it out to you guys, and you can talk on some of the ones we talked about. They don't have to be net new, but curious from the Sad Dads, what did nobody prepare you for that is either just good to get off your chest or that you got maybe some insights on?
I guess I'll start. This has come up a couple times, and I don't think necessarily people do it on purpose. I'm going to say people's tolerance for your grief. And I break it down into something that's probably too overly simple, but I call it the 6-month mark, where if you don't understand this world, and people start to be like, come on, isn't kind of time to move on? Ooh. Like, it's been 6 months or worse, like, you're pregnant again, or like, and thinking, well, being pregnant again solves the last problem. I mean, let's not even get into the mental fuck job it is being pregnant after a loss, which they don't even get into. You could, plenty of material on that.
Nobody prepares you for.
Yeah.
Pregnant after a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Like they say that until you get past the point where you lost the previous child, that you can't breathe again. So if you lose your child at 40 weeks or 41 weeks, like late term, like you got to go through the whole thing again before you can breathe. And like, that sigh of relief. It's not until the baby's out there and you hear the cry. Because that deafening sound in the delivery room of no baby crying is the worst sound in the world. I mean, it's awful. It's the worst feeling.
Yeah, and I'll wrap mine up pretty quickly. But for me, it was, I wasn't over it in 6 months. I'm not over it 4 or 5 years later. It's different. Like the day to day, like, I can get up, I can smile, I can talk, I can interact. But the lack of patience that people start feeling that, after a while, it can change friendships. And, we talk to a lot. And the reason I say this has come up at the open hours. People have started to notice it. The stupid shit, as you guys refer to, it happens all the time. But, I don't know how anyone could prepare you for that. I do believe people mean well a lot of times and don't think they're saying anything negative. But at the end of the day, what I tell people when they come to me and say that is, if you're lucky enough not to understand, I hope you never understand. I hope you never understand how unbelievably fucking dumb what you just said is.
Good point.
Great point.
What else did nobody prepare the sad dads for? Rob, Jay, you guys got one?
I think
on Chris's last point, I was just going to say, look, I'm 6 years plus removed from Bella's birth and death, which is a mind fuck in and of itself, right? Like that your child died before they were born, in the case of stillbirth. And I still don't know what to say. So, like, in fairness, like, it's a really hard, but I think you get, there's like more of a pass because you know that the person is coming from the same, like that there's no malintent because we're all in the same, worst club, best guys, right? And so it's really, really hard. But like, and I know how powerful it is and meaningful it is when someone reaches out and writes a handwritten note, when someone's passed away. Like I remember vividly people calling my phone off the hook as soon as they found out until I answered the phone because they knew it was important to talk to me, even if they didn't know what to say. And so like, I think that just being there is so important. And even if, I doubt there's lots of listeners out there who are just, dialing up this podcast because they want to, have a good cry. And so it's mostly people who are, part of this community, but, in the off chance that there's someone out there who's, just trying to be a support network for, someone who else is going through this. Like, it's just important to show up and be there and to listen and there's nothing better than just, being there for people.
Jay, you touched on an interesting point there. Just really quick, you said you don't really know what to say. I'm curious, just really quick, and it sounds like you're in sales as well, like I am, and you come across, and Chris, you're an attorney, and you're in philanthropy, Rob. Like, you talk to a lot of people that don't know your story. What do you say when they ask you how many kids you have? Because that's a common question that comes up, and it's something that I struggle with.
Same.
I personally say I have 3 at home, and that seems to be because when I'm 4 or 5 years removed. I mean, early on, I was like, I have 4, and people were like, "Oh my God, how do you do it? Tell me all the ages and everything." And then it almost snowballed. So I'm curious to know how you guys handle that.
Yeah, the exact same way I say I have 3 kids at home. I did it today. I was saying something to a group of colleagues celebrating International Women's Day, and I was talking about how I'm proud father of 2 little girls at home because I didn't want to get into in that setting because I was trying to celebrate International Women's Day. I didn't want to get into I got 2 living girls at home and 1 angel baby and a son. It was just too complicated. Not concise, as I mentioned, and so I was trying to be. But yeah, it's really hard. But I left the firm I was with 6 months after Bella died, and I was on the talking with folks, networking and interviewing for jobs. And sometimes I just throw it out there just to see how people reacted because it was just how I was feeling, and like I just wanted to be my authentic self. And figured, you know what? If you can't accept who I am and understand this, then like this is. I
don't want to work with you anyways.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a powerful point, Jay, and I'm glad you mentioned it because we've talked about that a lot. None of us are at the same job we were at before the loss. So I left about 6 months in my firm, went to another job specifically, even though I knew I was going to hate it. Specifically for benefits and hours as my wife was pregnant again. And then when I was interviewing again for my current job, like Jay, I made it a part of what I talked about, if appropriate. If it came up and there was a way to do it, I did it. And my now boss actually had since told me it was one of the most powerful interview answers he's ever heard talking about the formation of Sad Dads and taking a tragedy and trying to take something and make some good out of it. And it's a huge reason he hired me. And I couldn't be happier with where I've landed. And it took a long time. I mean, this is 4 or 5 years out. But for that situation, I told the whole story. But Brian, to your point, I think the at-home thing, people pause for a second, but most just move on. Yeah. And it lets me sleep at night because I acknowledge her.
I think you just helped a lot of guys out there. You know, I think it sounds like it's common. I personally still have the same job, but if you're interviewing, it helps to talk about it because you want to make sure the people you surround yourself after a loss are the supportive ones. And, you know, we all know it affects a lot of our relationships, family, friends, people you thought you were close with weren't there for you. But I think it's important to talk about it, and that's what we're all here to do.
Good point.
I go a step further. I say, like, I have a son, Dallas, who's 3.5 years old, and my daughter passed away. She would have been 5 years old. And even just, we were going to an open house for a school that my son might be attending. And the question was, go around the room, say your name and all of the children that you have. And I for years, I never brought up Lila, and Dallas is our rainbow baby. And once we're talking about it more, and that became something that every time I would neglect to mention her, I would feel this like pang in my heart, like this, just like tightening, and this kind of this actual physical response where I was like, I'm sparing somebody the discomfort. Nobody ever knows. And they say, oh, is that your only child? How many kids do you have? They don't know.
It's like, oh yeah, it's really easy. You just go to the store.
Yeah, just pop them up.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have any more kids? It's like, just order one on Amazon. But I've just been like, that's part of how I honor her, and like, she is my child, and she was my firstborn, and she made me a father, and I've just become. I felt more empowered, and I don't take any joy from having anybody feel uncomfortable for having asked what they thought was an innocent question, but it's also a very real response that many fathers, parents have. And so I think, if anything, helping people, if they're like, geez, that's not quite as innocent of a, it could be triggering for any number of reasons to ask people about children, not to say that it should be avoided at all, but I'm going around about I do acknowledge her and explicitly say that my daughter would have been 5. And I mean, I saw the room, like everybody kind of was like, you know, shifting around in their parents.
Yeah.
Were like, oh,
Yeah.
gosh. Because they're like, oh, my child, this name, this age is here today, checking out the preschool. And then we have, you know, Sally at home, 5 years old. And I was like, I'm definitely going to mention Lila.
Good for you. That's amazing and inspiring. Well, fellas, I know I'm looking down at the clock here, and it's been 1 hour and 3 minutes, and I am super bummed that it's already 1 hour and 3 minutes, because I think we could keep talking for another hour or two. And we would love to have you guys back at some point in time. And the more we can do to build this collective community together, support one another. I think the fact too, you said it earlier, Chris, like, and we say it in our intro, like, we're not professionals. We're just dudes that are fortunate. Fortunate's the wrong word. Unfortunate enough to have good friends that are in this same club, but we've got them, and we've found a way to leverage this power of this partnership and this family community to help other men. And I think we're all kind of kindred spirits in that way. So
And just to add to that, I think it'd be great to have, you know, one of you guys, two of you guys even co-host some episodes with us. And, you know, you're a big part of the community that we're in, and you're promoting, you know, positive reinforcement for dads and grief. And I love what you're doing, and it would, you know, it's so great to meet you guys.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all.
Also, and you know, I assume I speak for all of us, but I mean, the invitation is obviously extended for the open hours as well.
We'll be there.
We'll take you up on that.
And so, just to
I don't know
plug,
if we even talked about how to find the open hours. So
we
should
plug that.
Where can we
talk
find
about-
Sad Dads?
Yeah.
Rob, go ahead. Rob's our social media guru.
So every day, there's almost every day for the last 8 days now, there's been a social media post through the Sad Dads Club account that Rob has personally handwritten. And that's one of the things that I think people
That's cool.
really resonates with people is that this is deeply personal. It comes from the stories that we've written on our website, the stories that have been submitted by members, of the Sad Dads Club. There's thousands of followers for Sad Dads Club, and we've encouraged more and more people to write these stories. And Rob, with such care and just poise and eloquence, sifts through these stories and just really and pulls out these incredible quotes and nuggets and just like themes that come out of them, and puts them out and puts out his original thoughts as well. And so Rob is the face behind the brand, behind literally the Sad Dad brand, which he's got tatted on the back of his arm. Anyway,
yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, you chose the guy that was on TRL. That makes sense.
And I know what you're all thinking, and the answer is yes. We do have an insurance policy out on his hand.
So, Rob,
go to our Instagram.
Yeah.
You're an attorney, so your handwriting sucks, I bet.
Oh, I suck. I can't. Like, if something happened to Rob, Jay, and Jay, I don't know. Is your writing any good?
I don't even know if I can write anymore. I type.
I don't either.
It'll be a note.
That's why I got into it.
Well, I know.
Go to our Instagram at sad.dads.club. In the highlights reel, there is an LDOH, Lost Dads Open Hour. There's the one slide. And there's a Zoom link in that slide. It's the same Zoom link for everyone. No registration needed, nothing at all. And a quick plug. I know that we're running over time, but this is community. This doesn't happen because of any one people. It happens because everybody's showing up. It happens because you guys are opening the dialogue to talk about it. You're inviting people to talk about it. Every single person that shows up to a Lost Dads Open Hour, it's nothing if we don't have people there. This is all of ours. This is truly, genuinely, and thoroughly, completely community. And that's it just doesn't work otherwise. We could conceptualize all we want, but if people aren't willing to be vulnerable, open, and caring, then we don't have community. And this is all about. So thank you guys for adding and strengthening this community. And we're knocking over walls all together. That's everybody who's showing up, reading, submitting something, talking about it, reaching out to somebody, being there for somebody else, actively wanting to talk about and break the stigma that guys can't go through a grief journey, be sad, or have difficult days or tough weeks, months, whatever. This stuff is traumatic. And thank you guys for just being so open and having such love around it all. And I know that each one of your stories is heartbreaking and difficult, and your willingness to share it and to connect with other people is just profoundly incredible. My heart aches for you guys a lot. And we're so appreciative of this chance to talk a little more about it and just continue growing our community.
As are we. Beautifully said. And honestly, you guys have inspired us so significantly. You have helped us through our grief journeys, and the little bit that we can do to help the community that you guys have inspired and grown. We're excited about the future partnership with you guys and your pathway forward. Congratulations on the 501c and the future for Sad Dads Club. And we look forward to talking to you guys again more. Thank everyone for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Love you guys.
Love you, boys.
Thank you.
If you valued from this content, we ask you to share this podcast with others that could equally benefit. Leave us a 5-star review on whichever platform you're listening to help us improve our outreach, and to follow Guys and Grief on Instagram and Facebook. Also, if you'd like to join us and share your story, email us at guysandgrief@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.